You will name my granddaughter Mr. Whiskers, or I'll cut you from the will completely," my mother-in-law Patricia announced, standing in our living room with her arms crossed like she was delivering a royal decree. "My name is David Chen. I'm 34 years old, and I work as a senior software architect for Microsoft in Seattle. My wife Emma was 8 months pregnant with our first child, and this woman had just demanded we name our daughter after her deceased tabby cat that had died 3 years earlier." I looked at Emma, who was sitting on our couch with tears in her eyes, then back at Patricia's smug face. I walked to the front door, opened it wide, and said quietly, "Goodbye forever, Patricia." She stood there for a moment, mouth hanging open like a fish. "You can't be serious. Do you have any idea how much money—" "I said goodbye," I repeated, my voice steady as granite. "That was 4 years ago. Patricia has never met either of our daughters, and she never will. Let me explain how." We got to that moment because the cat demand was just the final straw in a 15-year campaign of psychological warfare that I'd been too polite to acknowledge until it threatened my unborn child. I met Emma in 2009 at a technology conference in Portland. She was presenting research on user interface design for her master's thesis, and I was immediately struck by her intelligence and passion for creating intuitive software experiences. We started dating within a month, were engaged 18 months later, and married in a beautiful ceremony at Snoqualmie Falls in 2011. Emma's father, Robert, was a retired Boeing engineer, a thoughtful, quiet man who treated me with respect from day one. He understood technical work, appreciated craftsmanship, and never made me feel like I wasn't good enough for his daughter. Patricia, however, was a different story entirely. Patricia had been a real estate agent in the luxury market around Bellevue and Mercer Island before retiring, in her early 60s. She'd married Robert when Emma was 12 after Emma's biological mother died in a car accident. Patricia always made it clear that she'd rescued Robert and Emma from their grief, and that they owed her their eternal gratitude for her sacrifice. From our first meeting, Patricia treated me like a temporary inconvenience. During our engagement dinner, she asked Emma, right in front of me, if she was sure about settling for someone so, she paused, dramatically, practical. When Emma asked what she meant, Patricia laughed and said, "Oh, honey, you know what I mean. You could have had Jonathan Hartwell. His family owns 3 hotels. Jonathan Hartwell was Emma's college boyfriend, the son of a prominent Seattle family who'd broken up with Emma during their senior year because he wanted to explore his options in graduate school. He'd eventually married a socialite from Vancouver and inherited his family's hospitality business. Patricia brought him up constantly, always with the same wistful sigh about what could have been. I ignored it initially. Patricia was grieving her empty nest, adjusting to her stepdaughter's independence. But the comments persisted through our engagement and into our marriage. She'd critique my job. Working for Microsoft is so corporate. My car, a reliable Honda Civic instead of something flashier. My family background. My parents owned a small restaurant in the International District. And my general lack of what she called ambition beyond a paycheck. Emma defended me consistently, but she also made excuses for Patricia's behavior. "She's just protective," Emma would say after particularly cruel dinner conversations. "She wants the best for me and she's still learning who you are." But I was learning who Patricia was too, and what I discovered was a woman who measured love in dollar signs and control. The first major incident came during our second Christmas as a married couple. Emma and I had saved for months to afford a down payment on our first house, a modest 3-bedroom Craftsman in Ballard. We were excited to share the news with her family during Christmas dinner. Patricia listened to our announcement with pursed lips, then asked to see the listing photos on Emma's phone. After scrolling through them, she handed the phone back with visible disappointment. "Well," she said, cutting her turkey with sharp, precise movements, "I suppose it's a starter home." "It's our dream home," Emma replied, hurt creeping into her voice. "Dreams change, sweetheart," Patricia said, not looking up from her plate. "When I was your age, I thought a little apartment above the flower shop was charming. Thank goodness Robert showed me what real security looked like." She gestured around their 4,000-square-foot house in Medina, with its panoramic Lake Washington views and imported Italian marble. "This is what happens when you make smart choices about partners who can provide properly." Robert shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. He rarely contradicted Patricia in public, though he'd later apologize privately for her mood. Emma was quiet for the rest of dinner. On the drive home, she asked if I thought we were settling for too little. "Do you like the house?" I asked. "I love it. Then it's perfect." But I could see Patricia's poison working on her confidence, and I started paying closer attention to their dynamic. Patricia's strategy was subtle but consistent. She'd undermine Emma's excitement about our life together while simultaneously offering better alternatives that always involved more money, higher status, or connections to people Patricia deemed more suitable. When Emma got promoted to senior UX designer at her firm, Patricia's response was, "That's nice, dear. Did I mention that Jonathan Hartwell just opened his 4th hotel? The Seattle Times did a whole feature on him." When we bought new living room furniture, Patricia sighed and said, "I suppose IKEA is practical for young people starting out." When Emma cut her hair in a new style she loved, Patricia asked if I'd requested she change herself to please me. Every comment was designed to make Emma question her choices and my worthiness as a partner. And slowly, insidiously, it was working. The breaking point should have come 3 years into our marriage, when Patricia suggested Emma take a break from our relationship to really explore her options while she was still young enough. But Emma had become so accustomed to Patricia's manipulations that she actually considered it, not because she doubted our marriage, but because she'd been conditioned to second-guess her own happiness. That's when I realized I wasn't dealing with an overbearing mother-in-law. I was dealing with someone who saw Emma as property and me as theft. I started documenting Patricia's behavior, not obsessively, just keeping notes of particularly egregious comments, dates, and witnesses. I also began limiting our exposure to her. Instead of weekly dinners, I suggested monthly visits. Instead of staying overnight during holidays, I booked us a hotel room. I did this gradually, always with reasonable explanations about work schedules or other commitments. Patricia noticed immediately and began escalating her efforts to drive a wedge between Emma and me. She started calling Emma at work with urgent family matters that required immediate attention, but turned out to be trivial complaints about neighbors or requests to help her reorganize closets. She'd invite Emma to lunch and spend the entire meal comparing our marriage unfavorably to the relationships of other couples in their social circle. The day Emma came home crying because Patricia had shown her wedding photos of Jonathan Hartwell's lavish Napa Valley ceremony, I decided enough was enough. We need to set some boundaries, I told Emma that evening. "She's my mother," Emma protested weakly. "She's your stepmother," I corrected gently. "And she's trying to sabotage our marriage." Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "What kind of boundaries?" We established rules. No more than 1 visit per month, no discussion of other people's relationships or life choices, and no comments about our home, jobs, or personal decisions. If Patricia violated these boundaries, we'd leave immediately. For a few months, Patricia tested the limits but generally complied. The visits became shorter and less frequent. Emma seemed happier, more confident in our relationship. I thought we'd found a workable solution. Then, Emma got pregnant. The moment we announced the pregnancy, Patricia's entire demeanor changed. Suddenly, she was involved again, but not in a supportive way. She had opinions about everything. Our choice of hospital, Swedish Medical Center, I suppose it's adequate. Our nursery colors, yellow and green, were too gender neutral. And our decision to wait until birth to learn the baby's sex. How can you plan properly? But the worst part was her obsession with names. Patricia had owned a series of cats throughout her marriage to Robert, each one supposedly more precious than the last. The most recent, Mr. Whiskers, had been a massive orange tabby that Patricia treated like a furry toddler. She'd talk to him in baby talk, carry him around the house, and set up elaborate photo shoots for Christmas cards featuring her and the cat in matching outfits. When Mr. Whiskers died of kidney failure 3 years before Emma's pregnancy, Patricia had him cremated and kept his ashes in an ornate urn on the mantelpiece. She regularly talked to the urn, updated him on family news, and insisted that Robert help her maintain the cat's Facebook page as a memorial. 2 months into Emma's pregnancy, during what I thought would be a routine dinner visit, Patricia announced that she'd been communicating with Mr. Whiskers' spirit. "He's so excited about the baby," she said, stroking the urn like it was still alive. "He wants to be part of the family again." Robert looked mortified. Emma looked confused. I felt a chill run down my spine. What do you mean? Emma asked carefully. Patricia smiled with the kind of radiant joy usually reserved for lottery winners. He wants his name to live on through your baby. Whether it's a boy or girl, we'll call them Mr. Whiskers. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom, Emma said slowly, that's not a human name. Names are just labels, sweetheart, Patricia replied dismissively. What matters is honoring family. Mr. Whiskers was family for 12 years. He deserves to be remembered. I looked at Robert, hoping for support, but he was studying his wine glass like it contained the secrets of the universe. We'll think about it, Emma said, the diplomatic answer that had become her default response to Patricia's more outlandish demands. But Patricia wasn't satisfied with, we'll think about it. Over the following weeks, she escalated her campaign. She bought baby clothes embroidered with Mr. W and Little Whiskers. She registered us for gifts under the name Mr. Whiskers Chen at 3 different stores. She started referring to Emma's bump as Little Mr. Whiskers in front of other people. When we protested, Patricia became emotional. You're dishonoring his memory, she'd cry. He loved this family. He deserves this recognition. Emma, hormonal and exhausted from pregnancy, started to waver. Maybe we could use it as a middle name, she suggested one evening. No, I said firmly. We're not naming our child after a cat. He wasn't just a cat, Emma protested, and I realized Patricia's manipulation was working even on this ridiculous issue. You're right, I said carefully. He was Patricia's cat, not ours, not our family. Our child deserves a name chosen by their parents, not dictated by someone else's grief. That's when Patricia played her final card. I think it's time you knew about the trust fund, she announced during our last visit before the naming ultimatum. Patricia had inherited substantial assets from her first marriage. Her deceased husband had been a successful commercial developer, which she'd grown through shrewd real estate investments over the years. She'd always hinted that Emma would inherit everything eventually, but she'd never been specific about amounts. I've set aside $2 million for Emma and her children, Patricia continued, watching my reaction carefully. But inheritances come with responsibilities. Family responsibilities. Such as? I asked, though I already knew where this was heading. Such as honoring family traditions. Family names. Emma's eyes widened. $2 million was more money than we'd ever dreamed of having. It would pay off our mortgage, fund our children's college educations, and provide security we'd never imagined possible. But it came with strings attached. Strings that looked suspiciously like puppet strings. I need time to think, Emma said. Patricia smiled. Of course, dear. You have until the baby's born to decide what's more important, a silly preference about names or your child's future financial security. After Patricia left that night, Emma and I had our first real fight about her stepmother. It's just a name, Emma argued. We could call her Whiskers at home and use her middle name everywhere else. It's not about the name, I replied. It's about control. If we give in on this, what's next? Where she goes to school? Who she's allowed to date? Whether she's worthy of the inheritance if she doesn't meet Patricia's standards? You're being dramatic. Am I? Think about what she's done to you, to us, for the past 6 years. She's undermined every choice you've made, criticized every aspect of our life together, and now she's literally trying to buy our child's name. Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, What if we need that money? We don't need it, I said. We've built a good life without it. We'll build a better one for our daughter without it. How can you be so sure? Because I'd been preparing for this moment since the Christmas dinner when Patricia first made it clear that our relationship was conditional on her approval. I'd been saving aggressively, investing wisely, and building my career with the specific goal of making our family financially independent of Patricia's manipulation. Trust me, I said. We'll be fine. But Emma wasn't convinced. Over the following weeks, as her due date approached, the pressure intensified. Patricia called daily with baby name suggestions that were all variations on Mr. Whiskers. Whiskers, Whitney, William Whiskers, Madison Whiskers. She sent links to articles about honoring deceased family members and the importance of generational naming traditions. She also began sharing details about the trust fund that were clearly designed to tempt us. Private school tuition, paid in full, a guaranteed college fund, a down payment on a proper house in a better neighborhood, all contingent on our compliance with her wishes. Emma was torn. I could see her mental calculations, the practical benefits of $2 million versus the principle of parental autonomy, the certainty of financial security versus the uncertainty of building wealth independently. 3 weeks before our due date, Patricia called an emergency family meeting. "I've been patient," she announced when we arrived at her house, "but I need a decision. The paperwork for the trust fund requires the beneficiary's full legal name." She slid a thick document across the coffee table. I scanned it quickly. It was a, legitimate trust fund agreement, professionally prepared with Mr. Whiskers Chen listed as the primary beneficiary. "You had this drawn up without our consent?" I asked. "I had it prepared for your convenience," Patricia replied smoothly. "All you have to do is sign and your daughter's future is secured." Emma picked up the document, reading the financial terms with growing amazement. This is really real?" "Every penny," Patricia confirmed, "plus growth. My financial advisor estimates it could be worth over $3 million by the time she reaches 18. I watched Emma's face, saw the temptation warring with her instincts. This was the moment Patricia had been building toward for months, the complete subordination of our parental authority to her financial leverage. "I need to discuss this with David," Emma said finally. Patricia's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "What's to discuss?" "You're choosing between your daughter's future and David's pride." "I'm choosing between our family's independence and your control," I said quietly. "Control?" Patricia laughed. "I'm offering you financial freedom, at the cost of parental autonomy, at the cost of a stupid name preference." That's when I realized Patricia genuinely didn't understand the difference. In her world, love was transactional, family was hierarchy, and money was the ultimate leverage. She couldn't comprehend that. "Some things weren't for sale. We need time to think," Emma said diplomatically. But Patricia was done being patient. "Fine. You have until the baby is born. But understand this. If you choose to be stubborn about this ridiculous name issue, you're choosing poverty over prosperity for your child. I won't make this offer again." As we drove home, Emma was quiet. Finally, she said, "What if we're making the wrong choice?" "What choice?" I asked. "Turning down the money." I pulled into our driveway and turned to face her. "Emma, what do you want to name our daughter?" "Grace," she said immediately. "Grace Elizabeth Chen." "Why Grace?" Emma smiled, her hand resting on her bump. "Because that's what I feel when I think about her. Grace. Like this perfect gift I don't deserve but get to keep anyway. Then we name her Grace," I said simply, "and we build her future with our own hands, not Patricia's money." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "You're right. No, you're right. It's hard to turn down that much security. We'll make our own security." I didn't tell Emma about the separate savings account I'd been building for exactly this scenario. Over the past 3 years, anticipating that Patricia would eventually use money as a weapon, I'd been setting aside a significant portion of my salary. Not enough to match Patricia's offer, but enough to provide a solid foundation for Grace's future without strings attached. That night, I transferred the funds, $127,000, into a college savings account for our daughter. It wasn't $2 million, but it was ours. Grace Elizabeth Chen was born on a Tuesday morning in March, weighing 7 pounds, 3 ounces. She was perfect, tiny fingers, dark hair, and Emma's nose. As I held her for the first time, I felt a fierce protectiveness that surprised me with its intensity. Patricia arrived at the hospital 2 hours after Grace's birth, carrying a massive floral arrangement and a gift bag. She swept into the room like she owned it, barely glancing at me before focusing entirely on Emma and the baby. "Oh, she's beautiful," Patricia cooed, reaching for Grace. "Hello, little Mr. Whiskers." "Her name is Grace," Emma said quietly. Patricia's hands froze mid-reach. "Excuse me?" "Grace Elizabeth Chen," I said firmly. "We decided last week." Patricia's face went through several expressions: surprise, disappointment, and finally cold anger. "I see. And have you thought about what this decision means for Grace's future?" "Yes," Emma said, her voice stronger now. "It means she'll grow up knowing her parents chose her name out of love, not financial obligation." "Love doesn't pay for college," Patricia snapped. "No, but savings accounts do," I replied. Patricia's eyes narrowed. You can't possibly provide the same opportunities. We'll provide different opportunities, Emma interrupted. Opportunities to make her own choices, to know that her worth isn't conditional on meeting someone else's expectations. For a moment, Patricia looked genuinely confused, like Emma was speaking a foreign language. Then her expression hardened into something ugly. Fine, she said, setting down the gift bag without opening it. But don't come crawling back when you realize what you've thrown away. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. You'll regret this, Emma. Both of you. When Grace is 18 and can't afford the college she wants, remember this moment. After Patricia left, Emma started crying. Not from sadness, but from relief. I'm proud of us, she whispered, holding Grace close. Me too. But Patricia wasn't finished. Over the following weeks, she launched what could only be described as a psychological warfare campaign designed to make us regret our decision. She sent Emma articles about the rising cost of education, the importance of early financial planning, and the regrets of parents who'd prioritized pride over practicality. She forwarded real estate listings for houses in expensive neighborhoods, with notes like, the kind of place Grace could have grown up. She also began a subtle social media campaign, posting photos of other family members' children at private schools, expensive vacation destinations, and elite summer camps, always with captions about investing in the next generation and the importance of family support. The cruelest tactic was her sudden interest in Jonathan Hartwell's family. Patricia had maintained a connection with his mother through their country club, and she began sharing regular updates about Jonathan's children, their academic achievements, athletic accomplishments, and social advantages, always with the implication that these could have been Emma's children if she'd made better choices. Emma tried to ignore it, but I could see the campaign wearing on her. She started second-guessing our decision, worrying about Grace's future, questioning whether we were being selfish. That's when I decided to show Emma exactly what Patricia's love was worth. I hired a private investigator. I know that sounds extreme, but Patricia's behavior had become so manipulative and relentless that I needed to understand what we were dealing with. The investigator, a former police detective named Sarah Martinez, specialized in family financial investigations. What she found was illuminating. Patricia's first husband had indeed left her substantial assets, but she'd been leveraging and spending them aggressively for years. The Medina house was mortgaged to the hilt. Her investment portfolio had been decimated by risky ventures and poor decisions. The liquid assets she'd claimed totaled less than $400,000, still significant, but nowhere near the $2 million she'd promised. More disturbing was the pattern Sarah discovered in Patricia's financial history. She'd used inheritance promises to control family members before. Her own daughter from her first marriage had been estranged for over a decade after refusing to name her son after Patricia's deceased mother. Patricia's sister had cut contact after Patricia demanded veto power over her career choices in exchange for a promised loan that never materialized. Patricia used money, sometimes real, sometimes imaginary, as a tool of emotional manipulation. She dangled financial security like a carrot, then withdrew it whenever family members asserted their independence. The trust fund document she'd shown us was real, but it was contingent on assets she no longer possessed. She'd been bluffing, counting on our fear of financial instability to make us comply with her demands. I showed Emma the investigator's report on a quiet Sunday afternoon while Grace napped. Emma read it twice, her expression shifting from surprise to anger to something like grief. She lied, Emma said finally. She's been lying for years, I replied. About the money, about her influence, about everything. But why? Why go to such lengths? I thought about Patricia's obsession with status, her need to control every family decision, her inability to accept that love couldn't be purchased. Because she's terrified of being irrelevant, I said. She equates control with love. If she can't control us, she thinks we don't need her. Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "What should we do?" "Nothing," I replied. "We live our lives. We raise Grace. We let Patricia figure out her own path forward." But Patricia had one more card to play. 3 months after Grace's birth, we received an invitation to Robert's 70th birthday party. Patricia had planned an elaborate celebration at their country club, complete with catered dinner and live music. The invitation specifically mentioned that all grandchildren were expected to attend. Emma wanted to go. Despite everything, she still loved Robert and wanted Grace to know her grandfather. I agreed, but with conditions. We'd arrive late, leave early, and not engage in any discussions about names, money, or family expectations. The party was exactly what I'd expected, an ostentatious display of wealth and status designed to intimidate. Patricia held court like a queen, introducing Grace to other guests as our little blessing, while pointedly avoiding using her actual name. Everything was going smoothly until Patricia pulled Emma aside for what she called a private family conversation. I was in the men's room when I overheard Patricia talking to another guest about Emma's unfortunate marriage choices and how some people are determined to struggle unnecessarily. When I returned to the main room, Emma was nowhere to be found. I found her in a quiet alcove, tears streaming down her face, with Patricia standing over her like a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. And when Grace asks why she can't have the same opportunities as her cousins, Patricia was saying, you can tell her it's because her parents valued stubbornness over love. That's when I heard Patricia deliver the line that ended our relationship forever. If you really loved your daughter, you'd swallow your pride and name her properly. But I suppose some people are just too selfish to put their children first. I walked over calmly, put my arm around Emma, and said, "We're leaving." Patricia turned to me with a satisfied smile. "Leaving already? I hope you've enjoyed the party. It might be the last family celebration Grace gets to attend." "What do you mean?" Emma asked. Patricia's smile grew wider. "I mean that family is a choice, Emma, and if you choose to prioritize David's ego over family harmony, you're choosing to exclude Grace from her inheritance, her opportunities, and her family connections." She gestured around the elegant room filled with wealthy, influential people. This could be Grace's world. These could be her connections, but only if you're willing to show proper respect for family traditions. I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. This wasn't just about control anymore. Patricia was threatening to weaponize Grace's future relationships, to hold her grandfather hostage, to make our daughter pay for our independence. "Let me understand," I said quietly. "You're saying that if we don't name our daughter after your cat, you'll prevent her from having a relationship with her grandfather?" "I'm saying that actions have consequences," Patricia replied. "Some choices can't be undone." I looked at Robert, who was standing nearby, clearly uncomfortable, but saying nothing. Then I looked at Emma, who was holding Grace protectively against her chest. "You're right," I said finally. "Some choices can't be undone." I took Emma's hand and started walking toward the exit. "Where are you going?" Patricia called after us. I stopped and turned back. "We're going home to our daughter, the one named Grace Elizabeth Chen, who will grow up knowing that her parents' love isn't conditional on her compliance with other people's expectations." Patricia's face flushed red. "You're making a mistake that will affect Grace for the rest of her life." "No," I replied. "We're protecting Grace from someone who thinks love is a transaction." As we reached the door, Patricia played her final card. "If you leave now, you're choosing to cut Grace off from her family inheritance. $2 million, David. Are you really going to let your pride cost your daughter her future?" I paused, feeling the weight of every eye in the room on us. Then I smiled. "Patricia," I said clearly, so everyone could hear, "Grace's future was never yours to give or take away. It's ours to build, and we're going to build something beautiful." We walked out to stunned silence. In the car, Emma was shaking. Did we just walk away from $2 million? We walked away from $2 million worth of emotional manipulation, I corrected, and gained something priceless, our daughter's freedom to be herself. That night, I showed Emma the college savings account I'd been building. It wasn't millions, but it was a start. More importantly, it was ours. "We'll add to this every month," I promised. "By the time Grace is 18, she'll have enough for any college she wants, and she'll know that her parents earned it through hard work and love, not by surrendering their dignity." Emma smiled through her tears. "I love you, both of you." That was 4 years ago. Grace is now a brilliant, confident 4-year-old who loves books, dinosaurs, and helping me cook dinner. Her sister Lily, born 2 years later, is equally wonderful and was named without any input from Patricia whatsoever. Robert reached out once, about 6 months after the birthday party incident, to ask if he could see his granddaughters. I told him he was welcome in our home any time, but that Patricia wasn't. He chose Patricia. We heard through mutual friends that Patricia had been telling people we'd stolen her granddaughters from her, that we were alienating the children from their family. She apparently never mentioned the cat name demand or the financial blackmail. Last year, Emma ran into Jonathan Hartwell at a coffee shop near her office. He was alone, looking tired, going through his second divorce. When he asked about her family, she showed him photos of Grace and Lily. "You look happy," he said. "I am," Emma replied. "Good for you. I always wondered if I made the right choice back then." "You did," Emma said kindly. "We both ended up where we belonged." Later, she told me about the encounter. "Patricia was wrong about him too," she said. "Money and status don't guarantee happiness." "No," I agreed. "But building something together does." The college savings. Accounts now contain over $180,000 combined. We'll add more each year. By the time the girls are ready for college, they'll have full funding plus graduate school options, all earned honestly, without strings attached. More importantly, they're growing up understanding that love isn't conditional on compliance. That family means support, not control. That their worth isn't measured by their willingness to meet other people's expectations. Grace asks about her other grandparents. Sometimes. We tell her that some people have trouble showing love in healthy ways, and that's sad for them. She seems to understand. Last month, Grace came home from preschool excited about a classmate's pet cat. "Daddy," she said, "can we get a cat? I want to name him Mr. Whiskers." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Where did you hear that name?" "I made it up," she said proudly. "Isn't it perfect for a cat?" Emma and I looked at each other and started laughing. "Yes, sweetheart," I said, lifting her up. "That's a perfect name for a cat, because some names are meant for pets. Others are meant for the people we love most in the world. And Grace Elizabeth Chen will never have to wonder which category she falls into." Patricia made her choice 4 years ago when she decided that her need for control was more important than her granddaughter's well-being. We made ours when we chose love over leverage. I don't regret it for a second. Sometimes people ask if I ever think about what might have been. If Patricia had accepted Grace's name, if we'd maintained the relationship, if the girls could have benefited from their grandmother's resources. The answer is simple. I think about what is. 2 healthy, happy daughters who know they're loved unconditionally. A marriage built on mutual respect rather than external validation. A family that makes decisions based on our values, not other people's expectations. That's worth more than any inheritance Patricia could have offered. And unlike her promises, it's something no one can ever take away from us. Grace Elizabeth Chen is exactly who she was meant to be, and she'll never have to thank a dead cat for the privilege of being herself.